Ole'Pops here. Now, I was contacted. Oops, I got a light on. I was contacted the other day by Steve at Smoking Cardboard, and he wanted me to move now. He wanted me to carve him a stamp. So I got my pencil, and I got my box that TPI sent me. It was a humidifier, and I glued my light down in it, and got all my carving tools in there, and got my dark marking pencil, pencil. Let me show you what he's done here. He's told me what he wants. Let me find it. Here it is. There it is. He sent me his artwork that he wants. And I transferred it. He wants Smoking Cardboard written down at the bottom. So, Lord help me. I transferred it. With my dark marking pencil onto the paper. And you can see where I put his letters down there at the bottom where it says Smoking Cardboard. Now, here's what we do. I told him I'd make a video out of it. So, we're going to take a pencil. I'm going to stick it right in the chair where we won't lose it. You can take, now here, what we use, Peasy cut. You can spell it any way you want to. Look it up on the internet and you won't find it. But if you spell it PZ cut, you find it. Look it up on the internet. If you decide this is what you want to do, cut this stuff and make stamps, PZ cut. But anyway, it's just rubber. But we're going to cut us a piece. Last pipe. The last stamp I made was this one right here. It's got a little pipe on it. I don't know if you can see it or not. The light ain't real good in here. Let me hold it still, maybe you can. It's got a little pipe on it. And down at the bottom of it is that it says, "Si ce n'est pas une pipe," which is French for, everybody knows this is not a pipe. Anyway, you can take a pound. I'll do it on the back. You can take a pound and write on this stuff all day long, and you'll never make a mark on it. Never. But you can take a pound and make yourself a pattern on paper. Just draw it off on paper And keep in mind that when you transfer it onto the rubber, it's going to be backwards. But that's perfectly fine, because that's the way you want to carve it. Because when you turn it upside down and stamp it, it's going to stamp it reverse anyway. And if you stamp it reverse, it's going to stamp it forward, like a reverse. So, now, if we took this where it says smoking cardboard and transferred it onto that rubber, it's going to transfer on there onto a reverse image. I would say a negative image, but a negative image would be black, white to black. So it would be just a flipped image. Now here's what we want to do. You want to take something sharp. What I generally use is just a guitar pick. And I'm going to take one corner, and you can see that right there is just the right size of where I cut that piece of PZ cut out right there. Same size as that. That's the last thing I made out of it. But you'll notice that one side of it is a little more polished than the other. And one side of it generally has some dents and some blemishes in it where they rolled it through the machine. So check it and make sure you use the good polished side. So we're gonna use this side, and I'm gonna use this corner. So take it, lay it down just like that, and make sure, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Just like this, lay it straight down and make sure that it does not move during this process, or you'll get a double image. And then take something flat and sharp. You can use something like this, a little metal ruler. But I find that I have better luck using a guitar pick than anything else. And you rub it or scratch it, the edge of it like that right there. Just rub it. I'm rubbing it with the blade of it, like this right here. Like I was, you remember when, I don't know, most of y'all ain't my age, but when I was a kid, we used to get those little transfers that we could, they had some kind of little ink on them that you could lay down on paper, little stencils that you could scratch the back of and they'd come off. It's kind of like that. And just scratch it. You don't want it to move. Just make sure it don't move. And rub it real good. Oh yeah. And all it is pencil lead. Powerful. And that's what you end up with. You end up with it transferred right there onto the rubber. And from this point, you take your X-Acto knife and you cut this little piece off so you can have something that's small enough for you to work with. And you can look at the letters and tell that they're backwards. I guess you can, maybe you can't. But what you do from this point is you cut away all the white. Everything that's white, you cut it away. And the black line is what you want to leave on there. And that's going to be backwards. Then when you ink it up and throw it back down there on a piece of paper, it's going to stamp forward. All right, we're going to cut her out. We're going to get to moving on. I'll let you watch me here in a minute. Be right back. All right, now, there's our stamp. Now what we've got to go by is let me get a couple of tools out of here. We've got the print that's on here. We've got this little print that we still got. And we got the picture that he sent us, so we can reference all three of them. Now, we got to cut away everything that is not raised. We're going to cut all of this away. We're going to cut all of the face out. We're going to cut out this little stripe in the pipe. We're going to cut the wood grain out in the pipe. We're going to cut his t-shirt out. And then we're going to cut all of this out, leave the letters in there. Then we're going to trim it down to where the only thing that's there is that. So, what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to get my outside edge. Whoop. There ought to be something that is doable with all those little shards that come off this stuff. But ought to be some kind of way you can melt it down and make another block of peasy out of it, but I've never found a way to do that. And that peasy cut is really expensive. Julie's in the kitchen cooking. I don't know what she's making besides a mess. But hey, Grandma, what's for supper?
Talking to me?
Well, I was.
Well, now I'm trying to figure it out. Abby's here. We have 7 eggs. Not enough of them potatoes to do anything with.
Alright. We're fixing to run into some time-consuming work here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up this outside perimeter. Then I'm going to shut y'all down. There she is. Back at you. I'll give you a hint. One thing that I like to do when I'm carving, well, I just spit on it. Not spitting on it. That's not it. I don't like to spit on it. But one thing I do like to do when I'm carving is knock the eyes out first. When I'm carving in this particular case, smoking cardboard here, he's got something in his mouth. He's clenching a pipe, so he's got his mouth closed. But in a lot of cases, folks have their mouth open and they're smiling, and they show their teeth. Teeth and eyes are the hardest thing in the world to do. You can make or break a portrait with the teeth and the eyes. So if you will go on and knock out the teeth and the eyes at the beginning, you can save yourself a whole lot of hassle. Because a lot of times I have carved portraits and gotten to the very, very end of a portrait and then mess the whole thing up by screwing up an eye. And it just wasn't worth saving. You carve stuff away and you can't add back to it. You just can't add back to it. I'll tell you what you can do though. You can stamp over it with another stamp. Like you can mess up an eye and then with another little piece of rubber carve a little pair of sunglasses and put over it. But here's the bridge of his nose. Okay, now, here's a trick. If you have a co-op in your town, hypodermic needles are a lifesaver when you're carving this stuff. and make the most tedious little slices in this rubber. Slices that those big gouges like that could never make. And we want to leave a pupil in his eyeball. And the only way that we can do that is to take out that tiny little piece. But we got to leave a tiny little chunk in the center. And there it is. See it? Just that tiny little piece right there. Now we take out another one right beside it. We stamp that stamp. There'll be a pupil in his eye. Co-op. They sell them to vaccinate animals. Now, we'll start right here. Cut out his top eyelid. I'm gonna get back to you. Okay. For the most part, I've trimmed it out. So I'm going to take the X-Acto knife, trim the rest of it out. It's just this bottom corner. Now, I'm going to come backwards the other direction. It broke my point there. But I want to come back the other direction at it so I don't cut that tip off that G. Now, I'm losing tension. Now, there's what we have. Smoking cardboard. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of some of that stuff. Always put your safety cap. Ah! Always put your safety cap back on your blade. And we're going to reach in here and get out a hypodermic needle. Now, if you'll notice, on the O's and the A's and the B's and the D's, we don't have any of those little O's centers cut out. Yeah, let's hold it still so you can see that. We don't have any of the centers cut out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the little hypodermic needle. Let me turn this to the hypodermic needle. And for instance, that O, we poke it right in there and just follow that circle. And then just lift that little plug right out. See the O? Right there. Oh. And we'll go around and do the A and the B and the B and A and do all of them. I'll be right back and I'll show you. Now, once we get it all carved out, we turn it over, and on the back side of it, we carve this crisscross pattern with a larger blade. And what that is for glue channels, because we're going to end up gluing it down to a hard block and make a backing, a mount for it. That way it doesn't wobble when you try to stamp it. Anyway, this is what we ended up with. Smoking cardboard. Anyway, get back, will you? Let me wipe this off and get our ink pad, and we'll ink it up and see what it looks like. All right, what I'm using is Ranger Archival ink, Jet Black. It's a permanent ink. It's waterproof, and you can get it at any hobby store. And I'm going to go ahead and there's a little spot there on it. Going to get a good coat on here. Don't need to be on there. Smoking cardboard. Now, we'll take it outside as soon as that dries, put it on the grinder, and grind it all the way down, even with this. When we get that part done, we'll bring it back inside, glue this to the back side. Well, glue this to the back side, and we'll have a finished stamp. Then we'll drop that baby right in the mail. Send it right off to him. I'll show it to you when it's finished. Y'all hang tight. Now, as is always the case, something would go wrong. I got back inside and my battery on my camera was at 0. So I went over and plugged my camera in and let it charge overnight. This is the following morning. But as you can tell, not being one to waste time, I went ahead and glued a rubber stamp to the backing. See the little excess glue here that's squeezing out the sides? That's just fine. It's not gonna hinder the working of the stamp. But anyway, what I did was I glued it just like I did the foam. I just spread it on the back of the stamp itself. In the crisscross patterns, I just took this same old rubber cement. It's almost empty now. It's that clear grip Gorilla Glue contact adhesive, and I took no, I didn't take an old used. I took a dental floss toothpick that I always use those because they spread real easy. They do a good job. Some people use toothbrushes, but they're expensive. I can get up here at Dollar General store, I can get those toothpicks for like $1 a bag, and I just use them. And then once the glue dries on the dental floss end, I can still use a toothpick. No, that's not true. But they work just fine. They're a buck, and they spread that glue just fine. But make sure you get it down deep in the little grooves, and then I don't know if you can see it. I don't have much light. I mean, no, you can't see it. But anyway, I've got a wooden block over here, chalupa, the Wonder Dog, And then I lay it, anyway, I lay it on a flat surface, and then that art block box that I work on top of, I just set it down on top of it, put a little weight on it, and let it dry. But anyway, just add a little weight to it and squeeze that excess glue out the edges. But she's ready to send off. There it is. Done. Done and done. And Steve, old boy, it's ready to send to you. Hope it's what you want. I'm Ole'Pops. Much love.